I read Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. Stick around, and I'll tell you all about it. Hello, readers! I read my first Silvia Moreno-Garcia book, and it's probably no surprise that it ended up being Mexican Gothic. So content warnings for cannibalism, incest, sexual assault, miscarriage, suicide, eugenics, racism, white supremacy, murder, and there's gore. Mexican Gothic is set in a 1950s Mexican mining town. The main character, Noemi Taboada, is asked by her father to go check on her cousin Catalina. Catalina has been sending them letters, and they're very frantic sounding, and they're starting to question her mental health due to some of the things that she's writing in these letters. So Noemi is a debutante. She's an unlikely rescuer, but she's been sent to go check things out because Catalina married someone, and there were some concerns in regards to like the family stepping in, so they tried to kind of make it a little less threatening, you could say. Noemi's dad just wants her to kind of go in and check things out and just make sure everything is okay, instead of making like an official what's going on with Catalina, blah, 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 blah. So Noemi goes to High Place, which is kind of out in the country and away from Mexico City where she normally resides. And it's a very different environment than what she's used to. It's super creepy. There's lots of rain. It's very gloomy. There are actually a couple of mentions of Wuthering Heights in this book being Catalina's favorite book. And I can see some parallels in regards to some of the things that are happening, because Wuthering Heights is also a Gothic novel. But one of the parallels for me is how Noemi comes to this estate, and then she has to learn the backstory from these unlikable characters to find out what's really happening and what's really going on. The whole situation is very strange. They treat her rudely. They talk down to her. They don't let her see her cousin right away, and when she can, it's for very brief periods of time. Noemi's questioning everything. Is she hearing voices? Why is she having nightmares? Are the walls breathing? Like, certain weird things are happening, and she's kind of not knowing if it's real, if it's not real. And so there's just this setup. I would say that like 75% of the book is this just creepiness, this uncomfortability, this questioning of what's going on. And then the super gory stuff happens in the last 25%. That's when like everything hits the fan, and all the action and the gore happens in the last 25% of the book. But it is kind of clear that that first 75% is just a little bit different. The tone is different than all the action that gets thrown at you in the last 25%. I feel like this book is getting mixed reviews, and I'm wondering if part of that is the reveal. It didn't like bother me. I was able to keep reading, and I still enjoyed the book, but I felt like the setup was grounded in science. Like that's where we were heading towards, that there was a very real, a very logical answer to what was happening. And there was also a mixture of less believable, fantastical elements. And while I would have been okay with either or, like I would have been fully invested, the fact that it was both was a little odd to me. Like I can understand how some people may get to the reveal and feel like they just couldn't suspend their disbelief enough to accept it. And I understand why Jessie from Bow Ties and Books gave the rating and was frustrated with the reveal for this story. So that's just something to be aware of. So again, it's not necessarily what was put in there, but it was the fact that it was both that was a little bit, I don't know, just hard to digest. There are themes of white supremacy, of class, of racism explored in this book. The author did do, I think, her thesis on eugenics, so she knows a bit about that. A lot of discussion about that in the book. I also do recall seeing some complaints about it not being Mexican enough, which I didn't really understand. I'm not Mexican myself, but being Cuban American, there was a lot that I picked up in there, whether it was talking about the barajas or the curandera or the loteria. You know, like loteria in my head is just like lottery. I looked it up and it was interesting that it was like a form of bingo, but it was like using cards instead of numbers. So there was a lot of stuff in there. Pedro Infante, you know, I guess if you don't know what you're looking for, if you don't understand the Spanish and you don't bother to like look it up, then you may miss those things, but it was definitely in there. I think I may have one other by her, and I'm really looking forward to picking them up. I liked the writing. I liked what she was doing. I gave this 4 stars on Goodreads. And as far as like who I would recommend it to, I would recommend it to someone who's totally okay with that uncomfortable and slow questioning that happens throughout the majority of the book. Some people are just like, I just want the answer. But if you're okay being like, what the fuck, what the fuck, what the fuck, in a slow, steady pace for the majority of the book, then I think this may be for you. I really enjoyed it, so maybe you'll enjoy it too. Have you read Mexican Gothic? Do you plan on picking it up? If so, let me know in the comments below. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and don't forget to hit the bell to be notified when I upload new videos. Thanks for watching and see you next time.